There comes a moment, whispered and profound, when the veils of self-deception part like morning mist, revealing truths that the heart has long sensed, but the mind has refused to acknowledge. It is as though you have been wandering through a house of mirrors, lost in endless reflections, only to discover suddenly that one mirror has fallen away, exposing the stark reality beyond the glass. For the empathic being, this moment of recognition, seeing the self-absorbed personality in their true form, represents not merely an act of perception, but a sacred initiation into the deeper mysteries of human consciousness. This revelation unfolds not as a thunderclap, but as a gradual dawn, the slow emergence of clarity from the fog of projection and longing. The sensitive soul moves through existence carrying a peculiar burden and blessing, the capacity to perceive beneath surface presentations, to feel into the hidden chambers of another's psyche, to sense the wounded child that dwells within every adult mask. Yet this very gift becomes a liability when encountering the pathologically self-centered consciousness that sees others not as autonomous beings, but as extensions of their own psychological apparatus. The attraction between these two archetypal forces operates beyond conscious intention, drawing them together through the mysterious magnetism of complementary wounds. The empath, shaped by early experiences of emotional inconsistency or conditional acceptance, carries within their soul an ancient hope that their understanding might finally heal what has been broken. The manipulative personality, imprisoned within their own narcissistic injury, seeks in the empath a perfect reflecting surface that will mirror back the grandiose self-image they require to feel complete. This initial encounter resembles what occurs in the realm of dreams, where symbolic figures appear to offer what we most desperately need. The empath does not perceive the manipulator as they truly are, but beholds them through the lens of projection, seeing depth where there is only calculation, authenticity where there is only performance, potential where there is only well-rehearsed charm. The psychological mechanism operating here involves what we might call archetypal resonance, the way certain personalities activate specific unconscious patterns within us. The empath, often embodying the wounded healer archetype, encounters in the manipulator what appears to be their perfect complement. Someone who seems to need precisely what they have to offer. Someone whose brokenness calls forth their deepest compassion. But this appearance deceives. The self-absorbed consciousness does not seek genuine healing, but validation. Not connection, but control. Not love, but the constant feeding of their insatiable hunger for admiration. They have learned to recognize and exploit the empath's compassionate nature, using it as a source of the psychological nourishment they cannot generate from within. The unconscious agreement that forms between these two personality types creates what psychologists term a trauma bond, a connection forged not in authentic love, but in the mutual activation of each other's deepest wounds. The empath's fear of abandonment is triggered by the manipulator's pattern of intermittent reinforcement, while the manipulator's need for dominance is fed by the empath's tendency towards self-sacrifice. This dynamic can persist for years, with the empath caught in endless cycles of hope and disappointment, giving and being depleted, understanding and being misunderstood. They pour their essence into the bottomless well of the manipulator's needs, always believing that the next gesture of compassion, the next act of understanding, will finally bridge the chasm between them. During this period, the unconscious often sends warnings through dreams and somatic experiences that the conscious mind is not yet prepared to receive. The empath may dream of drowning in turbulent waters, of feeding a creature that grows larger with each offering, yet never shows satisfaction, of being trapped in labyrinthine structures with no apparent exit. These symbolic communications represent the psyche's attempt to convey what the waking mind refuses to acknowledge. The moment of true seeing, when it finally arrives, often feels like a form of death, not physical death, but the dissolution of the illusion that has sustained the empath through countless disappointments. It may be catalyzed by a particularly cruel betrayal, a moment of such callous indifference that even the most understanding heart cannot rationalize it away, or it may emerge gradually through the accumulation of smaller cruelties that finally reach a critical threshold. Whatever triggers this recognition, it brings with it a profound disorientation. The empath suddenly perceives the person they have loved not as they wished them to be, but as they actually are, someone fundamentally incapable of the reciprocal connection the empath has been seeking. This realization strikes at the core of their identity as one who can heal through understanding, who can love others into wholeness. The grief that accompanies this recognition is complex and multifaceted. It encompasses not only mourning for the relationship that never truly existed, but also grief for the years of their own life, spent in service to an illusion. The empath must mourn not only the loss of the person they thought they knew, but also the death of their naive belief in the transformative power of unconditional love. Yet within this grief lies the seed of profound transformation, for in seeing the manipulator clearly, the empath is compelled to examine their own participation and the dynamic. They must confront the uncomfortable truth that their compassion was often driven by their own unhealed needs. The need to be needed, the compulsion to prove their worth through service, the unconscious drive to recreate and resolve childhood patterns of conditional love. The integration process that follows this recognition is neither swift nor comfortable. The empath must descend into their own psychological underworld, encountering aspects of themselves they have long denied or avoided. They must face their own capacity for manipulation, their own hunger for control, their own shadow qualities that they have projected onto others or concealed beneath layers of compulsive kindness. This descent into the personal shadow often manifests in dreams of wandering through dark forests, exploring abandoned buildings, or confronting frightening figures that ultimately reveal themselves to taboo aspects of the self. The unconscious presents these challenges not as punishment but as opportunity, or the chance to reclaim lost fragments of the personality and integrate them into a more complete sense of selfhood. The unwitting teacher. As this inner work progresses, the empath begins to understand that their encounter with the manipulator was not a mistake, but a necessary initiation. The self-absorbed personality served as an unwitting teacher, forcing the empath to confront their own patterns of self-abandonment and to develop the very qualities they had been seeking in others: self-respect, healthy boundaries, and the ability to love without losing themselves. The transformation that occurs during this phase is alchemical in nature. What began as the raw material of suffering and confusion is slowly transmuted into wisdom and discernment. Not the naive compassion that seeks to rescue at all costs, but a mature empathy that includes both understanding and self-preservation. This process of psychological integration often reflects in profound changes in the empath's dream life, where once they may have dreamed of being pursued or overwhelmed, they now begin to dream of standing firm, of building protective structures, of discovering hidden chambers in their own psychic house. These dreams reflect the unconscious recognition that new possibilities are emerging. The empathic individual who has completed this journey of recognition and integration returns to the world fundamentally altered. They no longer seek to heal others as a way of avoiding their own wounds. They no longer mistake intensity for intimacy or chaos for passion. They have developed what we might call conscious empathy, the ability to feel with others without losing themselves in the process. This transformation affects every dimension of their existence. Their relationships become more authentic because they are no longer driven by unconscious compulsions or unmet needs. Their work becomes more effective because it flows from genuine strength rather than compensatory weakness. Their spiritual life deepens because it is no longer contaminated by the need to prove their worth through endless service. Perhaps most significantly, they develop a new relationship with their own sensitivity. What once felt like a vulnerability becomes a source of strength. What once made them susceptible to exploitation becomes a tool for discernment. They learn to trust their intuitive responses rather than overriding them with rational justifications or wishful thinking. The manipulator's repercussions and the empath's solitude. The manipulative personality, having lost their primary source of psychological supply, may attempt various strategies to re-engage the empath. They may promise transformation, express apparent regret, or create crises designed to trigger the empath's compassionate response. But the awakened empath, having seen behind the mask, is no longer susceptible to these manipulations. This refusal to re-engage often triggers intense reactions from the manipulator, who may escalate their attempt to control through anger, guilt, or even threats. But these reactions serve only to confirm what the empath has come to understand: that the manipulator's primary concern has never been love or connection, but dominance and control. The empath's withdrawal from this dynamic creates a vacuum that the manipulator must somehow address. Some may seek new sources of narcissistic supply, finding other empathic individuals to exploit. Others may be forced to confront their own emptiness, though this rarely leads to genuine self-reflection without professional intervention. For the empath, the period following this recognition often involves a process of profound solitude and self-discovery. Having spent so much energy focused on the needs and desires of others, they must now learn to attune to their own inner voice, their own authentic needs and desires. This process of reconnection with the authentic self often manifests in changes in creative expression, career choices, and lifestyle preferences. The empath may discover talents they had neglected, pursue interests they had abandoned, or make life changes they had previously considered impossible. They begin to inhabit their own existence rather than living as a satellite in someone else's orbit. the capacity for genuine intimacy, rather than being destroyed by their encounter with manipulation, is actually enhanced through this process. Having learned to maintain their own center while remaining open to others, the awakened empath becomes capable of relationships characterized by mutual respect, authentic communication, and healthy interdependence rather than codependence. In the realm of symbolic understanding, this transformation can be seen as a contemporary enactment of ancient mythological themes. Like Persephone returning from the underworld, the empath emerges from their descent into unconscious patterns with new wisdom and authority. Like the hero who must face the dragon to claim the treasure, they have confronted their own shadow and emerged with gifts that serve not only their own healing, but the healing of others. The dreams that accompany this phase of integration often feature imagery of spring returning after winter, of flowers blooming in previously barren landscapes, of rivers that had been dammed finally flowing freely again. These symbols reflect the psyche's recognition that natural vitality and creativity are being restored after a period of artificial constraint. As the empath continues to integrate these new understandings, they often find themselves drawn to assist others who are still trapped in similar dynamics. But their approach to helping is fundamentally different from their previous pattern. Rather than attempting to rescue through self-sacrifice, they offer their assistance from a place of strength and clear boundaries. They become living examples of what becomes possible when someone refuses to accept less than they deserve in relationships. Their very presence challenges others to examine their own patterns of self-abandonment or manipulation. They serve as mirrors that reflect both the potential for healing and the cost of remaining unconscious. The work of integration continues throughout life as new situations arise that test the empath's commitment to their own well-being. Old patterns may resurface during times of stress or vulnerability, but the awakened empath now possesses the tools and awareness necessary to recognize these patterns and make conscious choices about how to respond. Dreams continue to serve as guides in this ongoing process, offering symbolic guidance for navigating new challenges and opportunities. The unconscious, having been trusted and honored through the process of shadow integration, becomes a reliable source of wisdom and creativity rather than the repository of unprocessed trauma and projection. The relationship with the manipulative personality, while it may have ended in the external world, continues to serve a symbolic function in the empath's inner landscape. They may occasionally dream of this figure, but now the dreams serve different purposes, sometimes offering opportunities to practice new responses, sometimes revealing aspects of the dynamic that still require integration. In these later dreams, the manipulator may appear as a more obviously symbolic figure, a shapeshifter, a false prophet, or a hollow mannequin. These images reflect the psyche's evolved understanding of what the relationship actually represented. Not a genuine encounter between two souls, but a projection of the empath's own unhealed material onto a convenient screen. The profound loneliness that many empaths experience during their awakening process gradually transforms into a different quality of solitude. Not the emptiness of disconnection, with the fullness of self-possession. They learn to distinguish between being alone and being lonely, discovering that true companionship must begin with befriending themselves. This self-friendship becomes the foundation for all other relationships, having learned to provide for themselves the understanding, compassion, and validation they once sought from others. They are no longer driven by desperation or need in their connections with others. They can offer their gifts freely because they are no longer giving from a place of depletion. Emotional mastery and spiritual deepening. The awakened empath often experiences a profound shift in their relationship with their own emotions. Where once they may have been overwhelmed by the intensity of their feelings, they now understand emotions as information and energy that can be channeled constructively. They learn to feel deeply without drowning, to care intensely without becoming consumed. This emotional mastery extends to their interaction with others' emotions as well. They can remain present with someone's pain without automatically absorbing it. They can offer support without becoming enmeshed. They can maintain their own emotional equilibrium while still being genuinely helpful to others. The spiritual dimension of this transformation cannot be overlooked. Many empaths report experiencing a profound shift in their understanding of love, service, and spiritual purpose. They come to understand that their sensitivity is indeed a gift, but one that must be stewarded wisely rather than squandered on those who cannot appreciate or reciprocate it. Their spiritual practice, if they have one, often deepens and becomes more authentic, no longer driven by the need to prove their worth through spiritual achievement or service. They can engage with their spirituality from a place of genuine seeking and devotion, and they may find themselves drawn to practices that emphasize discernment, protection, and self-care rather than self-sacrifice and endless giving. The process of forgiveness, when it comes, does not resemble the premature pardoning that characterized their earlier responses to harm. Instead, it emerges as a natural byproduct of understanding both of the manipulator's limitations and of their own unconscious participation in the dynamic. This forgiveness is not a gift to the manipulator, but a gift to themselves, a release from the bondage of resentment and blame. This mature forgiveness does not require reconciliation or even communication with the person who caused harm. It is an internal process of releasing the grip that past injuries hold on the present moment. It allows the empath to remember without reliving, to acknowledge what happened without continuing to be victimized by it. As the integration process continues, the empath often finds that their entire approach to life becomes more strategic and intentional. Rather than moving through the world in a reactive state, constantly responding to others' needs and demands, they learn to make choices based on their own values, goals, and intuitive guidance. This shift from reactivity to intentionality affects every area of life, from career decisions to daily routines, from social interactions to creative pursuits. The empath begins to understand that their time and energy are finite resources that must be allocated wisely rather than given away indiscriminately. The dreams that accompany this phase often feature imagery of gardening, building, or crafting, activities that require patience, skill, and careful attention to detail. These symbols reflect the psyche's recognition that the empath is now engaged in the conscious creation of their own life, rather than simply responding to external demands. Relationships that develop during or after this transformation tend to be qualitatively different from those that preceded it. The awakened empath attracts and is attracted to individuals who are also committed to consciousness, growth, and authentic communication. These relationships are characterized by mutual respect, emotional honesty, and the ability to maintain individual identity within the context of connection. The fear of loneliness that once drove the empath to accept unsuitable relationships gradually dissolves as they discover the richness available in conscious solitude. They learn that being alone does not mean being abandoned, and that the quality of the relationships matters far more than the quantity. This comfort with solitude allows for the development of a rich inner life. The empath may discover new creative talents, develop philosophical or spiritual interests, or pursue learning for the sake of personal fulfillment rather than external validation. They begin to understand that their relationship with themselves is the foundation upon which all other relationships are built. The transformation also affects the relationship with their past. Rather than being haunted by memories of manipulation and betrayal, they come to see their experiences as valuable learning opportunities that contributed to their growth and wisdom. They can look back with compassion for their former naive self, while also appreciating the strength and resilience that carried them through difficult times. This reframing of past experiences often brings a sense of completion and meaning to what once felt like senseless suffering. The empath begins to understand that their journey through manipulation and awakening has equipped them with unique insights and capabilities that can serve both their own continued growth and their ability to help others. The gifts that emerge from this process are numerous and profound. The awakened empath develops extraordinary discernment, able to sense authenticity and deception with remarkable accuracy. They become skilled at setting and maintaining boundaries without guilt or apology. They learn to love deeply while preserving their own integrity and autonomy. Perhaps most importantly, they develop an unshakable sense of their own worth that is not dependent on external validation or approval. This inner security allows them to navigate relationships and life challenges from a place of strength rather than need, abundance rather than scarcity. The ripple effects of this transformation extend far beyond the individual empath. Their awakening contributes to a collective shift in consciousness, challenging cultural norms that enable manipulation and exploitation. By refusing to accept treatment that diminishes their worth, they model for others what healthy self-respect looks like. Their presence in the world becomes a catalyst for others' awakening, not through preaching or teaching, but simply by embodying the possibility of living authentically while remaining open-hearted. They demonstrate that it is possible to be sensitive without being vulnerable to exploitation, compassionate without being self-sacrificing. The journey from unconscious empathy to conscious empathy represents one of the most significant psychological transformations a human being can undergo, It requires courage to face difficult truths, patience to allow natural healing processes to unfold, and wisdom to distinguish between what can be changed and what must be accepted. For those who find themselves at the beginning of this journey, it is important to remember that transformation takes time and that setbacks are a normal part of the process. The unconscious patterns that led to involvement with manipulative personalities were often established in childhood and will not disappear overnight. Support from others who have walked this path can be invaluable, whether through therapy, support groups, or friendships with other awakened empaths. The journey becomes less isolating when shared with understanding companions. The validation of one's experiences and perceptions can be crucial for those emerging from relationships characterized by gaslighting and reality distortion. The ultimate goal is not to become invulnerable or closed-hearted, but to develop the capacity for conscious choice in relationships. The awakened empath learns to open and close their heart strategically, offering their gifts to those who can appreciate and reciprocate them, while protecting themselves from those who would exploit their generosity. This transformation is not a destination, but an ongoing process of growth and refinement. Each new relationship, each new challenge offers opportunities to practice the skills and awareness that have been developed. The journey continues, but with each step, the empath becomes more skilled at navigating the complex landscape of human relationships, while maintaining their own integrity and well-being. A victor, not a victim. In the end, the encounter with the manipulative personality, while painful, serves as an initiation into a deeper understanding of love, relationships, and the nature of consciousness itself. The empath who completes this journey emerges not as a victim, but as a victor, someone who has faced the shadow and emerged with gifts that serve not only their own healing, but the healing of the world. The final phase of this transformation involves what we might call the return of the gifts. Having been wounded and healed, having descended into darkness and emerged into light, the awakened empath is called to use their hard-won wisdom in service to others. But this service is fundamentally different from their previous pattern of self-sacrificial giving. They serve now from fullness rather than emptiness, from choice rather than compulsion, from wisdom rather than naive compassion. They become beacons for others who are still trapped in unconscious patterns, living examples of what becomes possible when someone chooses their own healing over the comfortable familiarity of dysfunction. Their very existence challenges the collective patterns that enable manipulation and exploitation. By refusing to participate in these dynamics, they help to evolve the consciousness of humanity itself. They become part of the solution to the epidemic of narcissism and codependence that plagues modern relationships. And in this service, they find the true meaning of their sensitivity and compassion, not as tools for rescuing others from the consequences of their choices, but as instruments for revealing truth, modeling health, and inspiring others to undertake their own journey of awakening and integration, personal liberation, and collective transformation. The awakened empath stands as a testament to the possibility of transformation, a living proof that even the most painful experiences can become doorways to wisdom and wholeness. The journey from unconscious absorption to conscious choice represents a path available to all who are willing to face the truth of their own participation in their suffering and to choose the difficult but rewarding work of authentic healing. In this choice lies not only personal liberation, but the seeds of collective transformation. For as more empaths awaken to their own worth and refuse to participate in dynamics that diminish them, the very fabric of human relationship begins to shift toward greater consciousness, authenticity, and mutual respect. The individual journey becomes a contribution to the evolution of human consciousness itself, rippling outward to touch and transform countless other lives.